Greetings viewers, I am Eric the Car Guy, here welcoming you to another episode of hashtag ETCG Dad's Truck. And in this installment, which will actually be 2 episodes, I will be modifying the gauge cluster in Dad's truck here. I was never really happy with the gauges that came in the vehicle stock, and I wanted to change them over to something that was more to my liking. So I chose this set of gauges from Speed Hut. I also used a similar gauge set in my Fairmont and was happy with those, so that's kind of why I went this direction. There are gauge assemblies available that you can literally just take out the old and bolt in the new. I decided to go this route because I could choose the exact gauges I wanted and set everything up in a custom way. I really like this kind of work. In this installment, what I'm going to be doing is covering everything that I did in order to mount those gauges in the dash. In the next installment, I'm going to be covering all the electronics, all the hookups, and how I wired everything together and got it all to work. I did a few other custom things besides just the gauges in my cluster here. Anyway, I'm sure you don't want to hear me talk about this all day. You'd rather see what's happening. So let's get to that action already in progress right now. I'm going to disappoint some of you because I'm going to use some parts from this cluster. And I kind of have to do that. And the reason being, actually I'll show you right now. It's this curve. And I'll get the other part of the cluster and I'll show you what I mean. So when the gauge cluster is installed inside the dashboard, it sits in there like this. And you'll note that this area along the sides is taken up by this hood in this cluster. Well, if I just come in here and I just make myself a flat piece of acrylic to basically fasten into place in place of this, which is exactly what I'm going to do, I'm going to have this whole area here as empty space looking into the dash, and I don't want that. So in other words, I want to keep this part, all this part up here, but nothing on the inside. That means this gauge cluster is kind of going to get a little bit, well, destroyed. And now back to our regularly scheduled disassembly. Already in progress. Tonight's movie will be Hondo. So here's the problem. Like, I'm not even going to use that. That's not even part of the equation. But what I will need is this piece right here. I'm just going to cut this part out. I'm not going to mess with any of this stuff, but neat stuff inside here, like these little wheel of gauges. Wheel of gauges. Okay, I want to keep the outer part of this, but I don't want the inner part. But I do need a place to mount my new gauges, which is why I got this piece of acrylic. And it seems like the quickest, dirtiest, easiest way to do this is to just stick this in the corner, find out where to make my cuts, and make them. And then I'll see if I can fit it inside the truck. And if I can, I've already got areas, well, the holes that I need to drill. It's just long enough. And by the way, I'm not really concerned with scratching the surface or anything like that because it's going to get scuffed down and sanded and painted. Nailed it. Now the trick is to mark all the holes. Let's drill those 5 holes. Just give you a rough idea of the layout. Perfect size. This has got to go. I am going to give this a try. It's a Dremel. It has, well, just sort of a square cutting bit on it. And I'm just going to try in an area away from the edge to see how well it works. And if it does, great, I'll continue. If it doesn't, well, I'll probably go looking on the internet for a better bit. I think this will work.
but I'm gonna have to like adjust my speed. Too fast and it'll start to melt. That was smelly. And that worked, so Drummel's your boy here, or girl. I'm gonna have an air fuel gauge, but instead of a boost gauge, this one will have a transmission temperature gauge. But this is roughly what we'll be looking at. I think I did really well. And I think just a little filing in this area will do the trick. Yeah, this is working. Especially with it flat on the table. So I dull my blade. Big deal, I'll get another one. Well, I can mess with this. I'll bring you back when I'm done. I have already gone ahead and marked the locations of where I want to put things. This got a little weird. I did this based on the inside of the opening. So I lined this piece here up with all the drilled holes where it's going to get mounted inside the truck. And I'm not making this up. This side in here is 6 inches. This side over here is 6 1/4 inches. So this thing actually opens up as it goes from one side to the other. So it's not exactly straight. And you can sort of see it by following this line here. You can see where that 1/4 inch comes in. But I wanted to make sure that they were fitted inside of the space. And it might be that the dash is bigger in the middle or whatever, but for whatever reason, that's how this worked out. So after doing that and knowing what space I had, which was roughly 6 inches and 6 inches over here and 6 1/4 over here, I divided both sides in two. This being 6 inches, I made a dot at 3 inches, and this being 6 1/4, I made a dot at 3 1/16 over here. Then I connected the two to find the middle. From there, what I did, I measured across the top, and I can't remember what it was. Almost think this is 12 inches across, and found the center there. So this is the direct center of the gauge set. And then I extrapolated, I said, okay, well, because I don't want to look down and see something that's off. So I went through and did all these measurements and found that this fits in the center over here really well. I think this is maybe 3 inches from the edge. Yeah, it's roughly 3 inches in. So this is 12 inches. So I divided this up into 4 quadrants. So this will sit directly at those crosshairs is where that one will be. But what I found was on these middle gauges, and I did the same over on this side, on these middle gauges, what I found was that this lower gauge, if I split this in the middle, that it would butt right up against here. So what I did was I moved it up a bit, and I'm going to have it just touch the center line up there, and then I centered this one within this quadrant. These other dots that you'll see up here, like here, here, and here, the gauges have the ability to hook the turn signals and the high beam indicator that we've talked about in the past. I've decided I'm not going to do that. I've decided what I'm going to do instead is hook these up as my indicators for turn signals and also high beams. There's some green ones in here that I'm going to use for turn signals, so I have 2 of those. The blue will be the high beams, but in addition to those, what I decided to do here was I split the difference between the top of this gauge and the top of this bevel, and that's going to be a turn signal. I did the same thing over here, which has less space, so this will sit up slightly higher than this will. And then down over in this quadrant will be the parking brake indicator. So we'll put a red light down here that when the parking brake is on and the key is on, this light will light and let you know that the parking brake is on. And later I'll set it up to also let me know when the brake fluid is getting low. The last time I used a fly cutter to cut holes when I did a very similar operation for the Fairmont. This time I've got these hole saws. Now I looked it up, and according to Speed Hut, it is a 3 7/8 inch opening for the large gauges. So this will be the hole saw that I'm going to use for that. And then the smaller ones have an opening of 2 1/16. So I'm going to use these to drill the holes in the acrylic. The opening is actually 3.875 or 98 millimeters. For the smaller ones, it's 2 1/16 or 52 millimeters. You probably already noticed that I put this piece of plywood underneath, because when I drill, I don't want to drill into my table, but I want to drill into something that's soft, preferably like this. So as I drill through here, this should not only hold this in place, but give me something to drill into. Should keep it from going anywhere. I've already got my marks. I'm already committed. I've already sort of eyeballed and checked things, and like once, twice, 3 times a lady. I'm going to do the smaller holes first, just because I'm concerned that when I do the big holes that it'll, I don't know, give me less structural integrity to work with. For some reason, I'm more nervous about the small holes than I am about the big ones. I really couldn't give you an answer as to why that is. I'm really sure that I'm in that. That's what I was afraid of. I need more because I'm hitting the table, so I need to raise this up a little bit. Let's just see if it's sized right. Sweet. I just want to go a little bit farther in, just a hair. Yeah, it starts to heat up at a certain point. Acrylic is funny to work with sometimes. A little file should clean up that slag. I'm afraid that if I use the impact feature of this, that it might crack it. So I'm just trying to put a little, I could probably just use an awl. Yeah, there's a little something there. Now that the gauges are actually in here, they're not exactly the same size as my mock-ups. So this is going to be a little too close. So what I thought I'd do is just move this over 1/4 inch, which puts me about there. It's nice having these lines because I can just use them that way, and I'll do the same over here. And just take it over. So that just moves them out. Just move them out 1/8 of an inch in either direction. So not 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch out from that. But it's nice having these lines so I know where to go, and really I've just got to mark along that. And this is how I figured that out. So I put those gauges in like this. Put this one in from this side, and that is right in the center. The mark for that needle is right in the center. So it seems to center up there and give it a little bit more space. Every time. I'm finding that keeping this cool is helpful because the acrylic starts to melt, you know, from the friction of this. So I'm slowing down, maybe giving it a little time to cool. I also just thought that I could probably, for the next one, run some screws through here, or at least on the edge here, to hold it. Gets gooey. Wait till it hardens back up. So happy those are dropping right in. One more giant hole to go. Then a few smaller holes. Yeah, that 1/16th of an inch did make a difference. The key with cutting acrylic seems to be to keep it cool. Give it a minute, give it a beat. Yeah, when it starts to heat up, it balls up. It starts clogging up stuff. But when it's cold, it cuts nice. Like that, it's over. Drilling regular holes is not nearly as stressful, but drilling those holes, stressful. That's gonna look awesome. The high beam indicator is not gonna go where I wanted it to go. There's just not enough space up there. It would look weird contemplating another plan. Turn signals will definitely work there, so that's good. I'm thinking about putting the high beam indicator down here by the parking thing, but that doesn't seem right. It almost seems like maybe using the one that's inside the Speedo, using that just for that, and using these for the turn signals. It's not like I'm using a high beam all the time anyway. So just use the high beam indicator on this just for symmetry's sake, and then do these holes up here so that I can do my turn signals. 19/64 or 5/16 would work great. Although, I already started. So these will be slightly off center because before I had these lined up with the center line, but I put these in a 1/16th of an inch off to the side, remember? 1/8 of an inch off to one side. But as long as they're slightly in the same amount, I don't think it's gonna matter. Well, I'm not gonna let it matter. That sucks. You are an ass. So yeah, you gotta watch that last little second there where it just wants to straight up break on you. When it breaks through to the wood, it's just like, it just lifts it up. So just by nature, the drill bit is trying to cut down through it, but what happens is once it gets down past it and goes into something else, it grabs an edge and starts lifting it up. Try to stay as close to it as you can, whatever you're drilling in. Lexan would also, Lexan is pretty stout stuff. Yeah, that lessened the chance of a break. That's gonna look sweet. Even though that's slightly off, to me it's still good placement. I hate that. Every time I hear that, I think, oh great, I just broke it. And of course it would be on the last hole. All that work now boils down to this. With the hood. Now that all the holes are drilled, I'm going to clean it off. I'm going to put a light sand on the front of it, and I'm going to paint it black. I'm putting a light sand on the face of this so that the paint has something to bite into. I just want to give it that foggy look. Let's paint it. I'm just going easy. One coat and I'm done. Primer and paint all in one can. Something like this. I think it's fine.
This box measures 130 inches. Fragile. I'll let that set up. Maybe put one more coat on it. We'll see what it looks like after it dries.
Some of you might be saying, hey Eric, that's nowhere near enough paint. And you're right. What it ended up happening was some lint actually got down on the paint. Also, I put a little scratch in it, so I ended up wet sanding it and painting it a couple of times to get the finish that you see here.
I think I'm going to start with the lights. I am a little sad I'm losing my high beam indicator. Nice. Feels indicated. I hope my ring's not too close over there. I was afraid of that. Like, just barely enough room. But barely enough is enough, right?
Well, viewers, that is a wrap on the installation of the gauges in ETCG Dad's truck. As I stated, there's going to be a follow-up episode of this covering all the electrical connections and everything else that I did that I will be posting shortly. And when that's available, the link will be posted right down there at the top in the description. Just an FYI, there's also an extended version of this video that includes both the first and second part all together and some additional footage available to premium members over at my website. That will also be linked down in the description. But I think what we have now looks better than what was. And I'm not really hating on this. I mean, it is a period piece, if you will. So this is definitely 1980s stuff. So I kind of want to keep it around for nostalgia's sake. But I like what I've done in here much better. In fact, I really enjoy this kind of custom work. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to put links in the description to tools, also the gauges and those lights that I used. So if you want to check that stuff out for yourself, check the description for links to that and additional videos and additional information. So just check the description for other stuff. If you have automotive questions not covered in this video, I ask that you head to EricTheCarGuy.com, which will also be linked in the description. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I really appreciate it when you do that stuff. Be safe, have fun, stay dirty, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much for watching.